Welcome to Cooking with Dr. Trindade. I was inspired to do this by several of my patients, one of which is a physician who had never cooked before, as happens with some of my other patients, and said, could you just do some very basic videos for those of us who haven't cooked, but we're sort of inspired to after talking to you and trying to implement that 10 to 12 servings of vegetables and fruit per day. And your theory about how if you can get those amount of vegetables, you're in much sort of healthier stead, not just in COVID-19 times, but in general. And then the next question was, well, how do I get all those in? And I'm constantly reminding them how you can make soups that are cream soups, but they're cream of vegetables. You're not adding any cream, dairy cream that is. And so then the next thing was, well, if I could just have a short video and make it simple, just keep it really simple. So that really inspired me to do this and to keep it simple. Now, whenever you are cooking yourself, whether you're making soups or anything else, please just be creative. You can add a lot more things, and you can experiment with different flavors. But for now, I'm keeping it really basic because I want to inspire those of you who think you can't cook to cook, because you really can. So welcome, and let's get on with cooking. Welcome everyone to Cooking with Dr. Trindade. Today we're making a carrot soup. Now this always reminds me of my nieces and nephew who lived with me for a short period of time and are very involved in their lives. And I basically taught them to really like soup. And so the first thing that they say when they come to my house nowadays is, Titia, is it orange or is it green today? And of course they're talking about soup because I'm constantly reminding them of the importance of the food and how it talks to our DNA. And of course, then their next question is, well, what's DNA? Now they're a little older, so they already know. But also, too, I wanted them to get the idea that the colors in our food are going to give us different phytonutrients. So carrots. One really important thing about carrots, and I'm going to be doing this as I'm speaking. I know that there is a peeler, but I always prefer to do things sort of the way I was raised to do them, which is to just hand shave it in a sense. And I'm just kind of removing the extra dirt. If I had grown these on my yard, I probably would leave it because I know that those soil organisms are really important for also seeding our gut microbiome and really helping our gut microbiota. So basically, you're just going to sort of clean them. I had already washed these, and then you're going to chop them whichever size you want to, because they're going to be cooked and you were going to be creaming it. Now, the nice thing about cream soups is that you can add almost anything to it, whether it's egg, or you can add other vegetables, or you can add your protein, you can add fish, you can add chicken, you can add beef. It's whatever you like and whatever type of soup you want to make in that particular day. So I'm just going to clean it and then sort of rough chop it, and then we'll be cooking it. Now, one thing about carrots. Most people, when I tell them about using a cream of carrot as sort of the base of their soups, and then you're going to be adding other vegetables to it, what do you think the first thing that they tell me? Especially if they're insulin resistant or pre-diabetic or diabetic. That was it, but I was told that that's too much sugar, that I shouldn't be having carrots. And I said, well, there is a difference between cooked and raw carrots. And yes, if you think of glycemic index, you may think it's too high, but glycemic index isn't necessarily the best measurement of how our body is going to respond to a certain amount of sugar in a vegetable, for instance. Glycemic load is a much better measure. And so carrots are actually low in glycemic load. They're also loaded with fiber. They have insoluble and some soluble fiber. And soluble fiber is really important for those gut microbiota because it's what actually helps them make butyrate, and it's also the what helps them keep that nice protective layer, the mucin layer. And butyrate is really important, not just for fueling or the fuel for the colonocytes, or cells in our colon, but it is also what helps build that protective layer, and it helps the communication between the different gut microbes. Now I'm talking about the protective gut microbiomes, right? Our gut microbiota that protects us from infections and keeps our immune system healthy, because 70 to 80% of our immune system is actually in the lining of our gut. So carrots. And then you don't necessarily need to be worried about the glycemic load because, or the glycemic index, because we're taking into account more of the glycemic load, and they are loaded with fiber. So here we have 4 cups of carrots, and we're going to be adding this to 8 cups of water. And as I said, I like it already boiling. You don't necessarily have to. You could have added also some onions or garlic, but I'm keeping it really simple, right? Because I want to encourage you that maybe you haven't cooked yet. I want to encourage you to do so, and I want to show you how simple it can be. So onto the stove. So here we are at the stove making our carrot soup. There's 8 cups of boiling water, and now we're just going to add the carrots to that. Just be careful, add it to the side so that you don't burn yourself. And remember, you could add less water if you wanted, and you would make it a little bit thicker. Sometimes it kind of depends on how I'm feeling for the day. So this, you're going to bring this to a boil for about 8 to 10 minutes, depends on how big you left your carrots. And remember, I'm making it really simple so that we are making it a carrot base only. You could have also added some onion to it, some garlic. I don't usually add to a carrot soup, but sometimes I'll make it half carrot, half squash, like your butternut squash. And you could add some onion. It actually goes really well with it. I'm trying to keep it simple, so I didn't. Now, one other thing. With a carrot soup, I really like adding some coconut oil. But I usually will not add it until I'm done and I'm creaming the base, the soup itself, and then you can add your coconut oil. Okay, so we have now cooked the carrots. You can do 8 to 10 minutes. Now, sometimes I will do, let's say these are chopped a little bigger, I might do 10 minutes. And then you could also let them steep. Turn off the stove after the 10 minutes, but let them steep for about 5 minutes. What that does is you're not boiling over or boiling out of it all the nutrients, but it does get them a little bit more tenderized if you want it to be a little more tender when you then hand blend it. So now we're going to blend it. And remember, this is just carrots. We've added nothing else but carrots and water. Now, if they're a little crisper still, or a little harder, you may just need to blend it for a little longer. But you are sort of keeping in more of the nutrients. And as I said, if you like it thicker, like, you know, sometimes in the winter I'm craving a thicker soup, you could just add less water. Now, I like stopping sort of halfway in between and adding my salt. And because I like a little bit of the sweetness, I will add about 1/3 of a teaspoon of salt. So just a little less than, or you could say just a little less than a 1/2 teaspoon. And that's just because I like a little bit of the salty flavor, but I also want the sweetness of the carrots. And then in addition, at this point, I like adding the coconut oil. So I'm adding about 2 tablespoons, and this one's been next to the stove, so it's pretty liquid. I just love that smell. Now, you could add more. To me, 2 tablespoons gives it enough to get that little flavor of the coconut and make it a little creamier. Because remember, we added 4 cups of the chopped up carrots. So I'm going to blend it a little more, and then we're going to decide on which spices we want to add. Okay, so now our carrots are creamed. Remember, I added just a little less than a half a teaspoon of salt and then 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. And now I really like adding a little bit more flavor to this particular recipe. So I will do about 1/4 to a half teaspoon of ginger. You can do chopped up ginger, you can do fresh ginger, you can do caramelized ginger if sugar is not an issue. I'm going to add about 1/4 teaspoon of your powdered ginger, or I should say dried ginger powder. And the reason is because it gives it a nice little flavor, and then ginger is just great for helping digestion. It helps your stomach be able to release its contents. It is antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. Great, so now you have your carrot soup base, and then you can decide on what you're going to add to it. So let's look at the choices that I've picked out, and then I'll tell you my favorites. One that I really like adding to this, and it was actually my friend Kathy that gave me the idea, is chopped up asparagus. It goes really well. Then you have this very rich soup that is great for antioxidant and has lots of fiber as well. You could also do your parsley or your cilantro. I usually, if I'm going to add parsley or cilantro, I'll do it in addition to some other green vegetable. So you could do your arugula, you could do your spinach, you could also do cabbage, and remember, you're going to pick one for each day of the week. So here we have 5 different things, and you could choose maybe one day you're going to mix them. So maybe you're going to do arugula and cabbage, or you're going to just do your celery, for instance. Right, so usually what I'll do is I'll add one each day of the week, and then my last 2 days I'll do a hodgepodge, whatever's in the fridge. Just wanted to pay attention to, bring your attention to something. If you're going to add your broccoli, it may need just a little longer cooking, but sometimes what I'll do is I'll just chop it up really finely and I'll add it to the soup just as I've turned off the stove, so it's still boiling, and then just let it steep for about 5 minutes, and it'll be al dente, but you don't need to necessarily cook it any longer. And with the arugula and the spinach, that's what I do. I rarely will cook it longer. You could, if you wanted to divide it and add the vegetables now, you could do that. I just prefer to chop up whatever I have in the fridge and add it, and that's my meal for the day. You can also add chicken, you can add turkey, whatever you'd like to add to it. But this is your base that you can then freeze and use as you need. And to me, it's a very rich in the sense of flavor, but also in its contents, in terms of vitamins, minerals, as well as fiber. So enjoy. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Cooking with Dr. Trindade. And just remember the importance of food and how food communicates with our DNA. And just like eating the wrong food can increase inflammation, eating the right foods can decrease inflammation and make our gut microbiome, our immune system healthier, more robust, more able to deal with all these foreign invaders. And don't forget about my rule of 10 to 12 servings of vegetables and fruit. And these soups go a long way to really showing you how you can incorporate that much, or so I should say that amount of vegetables into your diet. Because when you're doing a creamed soup, just in that one serving, you're actually getting 4 to 5 servings of the vegetable. Because remember, it's half a cup cooked is equal to 1 serving, or 1 cup raw, like a cup of arugula, or a cup of lettuce, or a cup of spinach. That would be 1 serving, whereas half a cup of cooked asparagus, or half a cup of cooked broccoli, or Brussels sprouts, for instance, that is a serving. But when you're doing the base of your soup as a creamed soup, a creamed vegetable soup, you're getting 4 to 5 servings per meal, because you're getting all that amount in the base, or in the cream, plus you are adding, right? Whether we're adding cabbage or spinach or broccoli or cauliflower, you name it, you are adding to it. So it's easy. If in one meal you can get 4 to 5 servings, in your next meal you can get another 4 to 5, and then you have one meal where you may be getting 1 or 2. Maybe you're doing more of your fruits. So extremely, extremely important. And remember, we're getting both soluble and insoluble fiber. It's true that your soluble fiber is more your nuts and seeds, things like your flaxseed meal, for instance, or your chia seeds, but you're also getting some of that, like in the asparagus, for instance, or in your carrots. It's really important that we remember that it's the soluble fiber that really feeds our gut microbiota. So make it a great day. Please enjoy my recipes, and thank you so much for your participation and for your information. You inspire me, and I so appreciate that. My best to you.